The left wing has a hard time keeping traction with its far right feminist girlfriend hanging around its neck. The left wing has embraced this conservative hate movement and has to continually jump through hoops to try and say that it's left wing. Basically, it's Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks. If you ever seen that show, Uncle Ruckus is in love with the white man, and therefore anything the white man does is good. And he joins in on the racism against his own people. That's basically what the average left-wing man is, an Uncle Ruckus. Now, this guy's Anthony Jones. He's a perfect example. Let's get in on this.
Trigonometry spoke to comedian Andrew Schultz, basically a discount Bill Burr for the MAGA right.
Oh, I'm glad he brought up Bill Burr. Before we go any further with him, Bill Burr is guilty of this too. He's a guy who with a feminist wife who then turns on his own people. He's an Uncle Ruckus too. Now listen to this.
For conservative people to act like they're not the biggest fucking babies also is fucking hilarious. Have you seen this fucking my people, Whitey? We're all fucking upset. There's enough of us to get it going, trending anyway. We're upset about the new Cinderella movie.
Talking about Snow White, of course.
The actress playing Cinderella isn't white. There's no prince. They changed the story. What am I going to tell my kids?
Now, Bill Burr is a bold-faced liar here because he knows better. He knows that the Snow White remake is anti-male propaganda. They get rid of the princes because they don't want to show a man get the girl, right? And of course, he pulls them the old racist card. They're just racist. Yet, if you look at the average person talking about Snow White, they are not necessarily anti-feminist. There's a lot of young women who have a problem with that. You know why? You know why, Bill Burr? Because the average girl, as you can see by this, wants to be wealthy. And she doesn't want to work for a living. So they have fantasies about getting with the high status man. That's what the prince is. He's a high status man. So they enjoy the Snow White fantasy. She's just a, peasant girl. Bam, she marries the prince. Now she doesn't have to work for a living. But the point is, these women, they're not all far right, are they? They're not far right men, are they, Bill Burr? Matter of fact, if this was all about right wing, the Snow White movie would still have done well. There would have been far right guys crying, like you say, and then the film would have done well anyway. But it hasn't because the average young girl who's a feminist isn't interested in it. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. Let's continue here.
He likes to play the centrist, likes to hedge his bets, but like cowardly right-wingers, he is actually a right-winger. They like to play the centrist like, oh, I've not changed. The left has gone too far. But in fact, he is a right-winger and is too cowardly to own that fact. So let's
agree. You see, Anthony here called these right-wingers out. It's true. I've seen that myself. The right wing is misanthropic, it has nothing positive to offer. They know their ideas are bad, so they don't even want the right wing label. That's why they call themselves centrist. However, Anthony, when you talk about feminists don't even have to rebrand themselves. You just say that feminism is good. They're women and women are good. You worship women, so women are good. And therefore, feminism is good. Therefore, white people are good, right? See the comparison.
Let's get straight into the clip.
But on the other hand, you open Twitter.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to bypass Schultz because I'm not concerned with what he has to say. It's what Anthony says, because he's the one showing his hypocrisy. Now, they even talk about the free speech issue, which is important for men.
Founded by the left because he's a neo-Nazi. But the idea, like, freedom of speech, it's such a childlike notion. Like,
Free speech is a childish notion.
you can say what you want. It's like you've been restrained by the left, even though these kind of guys just have always had platforms. They have the biggest platforms. They say what they want. You know, they like to.
Well, that's a bullshit lie, dude. How do you explain Rumble then? Rumble is filled with right-wing conservatives. Why? Why would they all go to Rumble? Here's YouTube, right? Because you know better. How many times in my MRA space has some guy said to me, hey, I typed a reply and it disappeared? Because YouTube is feminist controlled. The former CEO was a feminist. And all of a sudden, all these algorithms silence men's voices. That's why. So they're talking about a true blue issue. Now, these guys would silence other people's voices. That's a fact. They're hypocrites. But nevertheless, they're still right. Again, Anthony, how do you explain why so many right-wing people have opened up Rumble accounts, Rumble channels, so they actually can speak their minds? So it's not childish. It is indeed a fact. Now, he tries to say, like a typical left-winger, that feminism is good.
Capitalism, as we kind of know it now. And then there's a reaction to that. There was a reaction to the suffragette movement in the early 20th century. There's a reaction to the civil rights movement. So anytime there's a progressive movement that pushes someone forward, there's always a backlash.
Really, so feminism pushes things forward, and you're trying to put them in the same space as the civil rights movement, right? So does this look progressive to you? Women who never have to suffer or who never have to sacrifice or fear it, shaming a man simply because he is male to go to the war grinder where he will die. That's progressive to you. And it's all about equality. You see, I got to tell you something, Anthony. MRAs are left wing, feminists are right wing, because men are the ones who desire equality between the sexes. We have everything to gain and nothing to lose. While women are the opposite. They have everything to lose and nothing to gain. This is what they really want. They want an easy life on men's dime while attacking men for being men. They're a hate movement. They are no worse than these right-wingers here. Only they are worse because they have backing of left-wing men like you. So you see my issue with this, right?
Woke stuff is just that. And it would be nice and it would be sensible to have everyone being brought along with the trans issues and immigrants. But that, unfortunately, reality isn't perfect.
I guess it isn't. Trans issues and immigrants. Now, I have to ask you, Anthony, TERFs, do you consider them right-wing? Because they're anti-trans. Or to be more specific, they're anti-trans women. They don't care about trans men. In other words, they're anti-male. They see trans women as male. But in any event, they're anti-trans. Do you consider them right-wing? I bet that if I asked you this question, you would turn around and avoid the answer. You would say, this isn't even something I'm going to bother giving an answer to. It's not worth it. You know why? Because you would have to come to terms and say, okay, either they are feminist, for one thing. That's what the F stands for. So you couldn't deny that they're feminist. So you would have to say at least one branch of feminism is anti-trans. Now, are you going to admit that? Because then you'd have to say that they're far right and they don't belong on the left. Also, again, do you think that they're pro-immigrant? Do you think immigrant men that are leaving other countries to find a better life want to deal with this? That they want to have wealthy, privileged women pushing them off to war to die. Do you think immigrant men would like that, Anthony? I bet they wouldn't. Right? Now I'm going to challenge Antony on what he's about to say here.
I do that way more than the left. So they'll have this kind of a disgust of trans people, or like they don't come to. It's like climate change is inconvenient, and then they'll post hoc put like, oh, there's always been climate change. There's always been changes in the weather, even though weather and climate are different. That's what they do. Whereas we start with the evidence. We start like, okay, where does the evidence take us? And then we base our opinions on that.
Do you now? I would say that is true to an extent, but it ends with feminism. So when the MRAs bring out the actual history of feminism from its very beginning, do you look at this evidence, Anthony? Do you look at this evidence and say, oh, yeah, I can see it's a hate movement and that it's against my well-being as a man? No, you just tell us we're incels. You just react emotionally. So, yes, these right-wingers are correct, or I should say you're correct about them being emotional. They're just as emotional as you. It's just that you're just as guilty as them when it comes. You are an Uncle Ruckus. You worship women, therefore you worship feminism. And therefore you have to jump through these hoops to try and say that an evil hate movement is good and left-wing and progressive.
People who were never like reasoned into their position. It's like arguing with your wife.
What? Like, he was not reasoning his position on Trump at all. There's no logical reason to vote for Trump. It's an emotional thing. It's a cult thing. It's a stick it to the libs thing. You're not going, right, look at his policies, look at what he's done, look at who he is as a person, look at what he represents. Does he care about the working people? Right. There's no logic there. I'm sorry. Pure emotion, pure like, oh, I feel like America great, populism, like a heartfelt fervor that he's going to do it. No evidence of that, and we're seeing that already. The polls are going down. People realize, right? Oh yeah, he did lie to us. Obviously,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, seriously, honestly,
it just shows you what kind of relationship these guys have. Like, argue with your wife, like sometimes you argue, you're tired, whatever, but like you have a kind of argument. Like, just listen to what he says. It's so dumb.
Okay.
Going to therapy with my wife has taught me everything about like communicating with people on the internet.
Why would you need to go to therapy with your wife? That's a useless. Basically, men and women argue. The husband is the servant. The woman has no respect for him. That's why they argue, period. So this guy wasted money on getting so-called therapy, couples therapy. Couples therapy is just a professional telling a man to know his place.
When they feel something, like if you guys married, you guys have okay, great.
I am.
You?
He's smart.
Yeah.
So notice it's universal. These guys might be right wing, but what they're saying is said by left wing men as well. Gender dynamics is universal. There's no left right to it.
So it's like your wife, you do something pisses off your wife, right? Now, is the smartest thing to do to like logically explain to her why she shouldn't be pissed off?
I have tried that many times.
How does that work? When you go,
not good,
hey,
man.
here are these data points that show why you shouldn't be angry.
Yeah, that has never worked out.
Yeah, because you shouldn't necessarily, if someone's angry, you should just listen to them and be like, oh, I didn't do the washing and I said I would, or like try and validate them emotions on.
Don't even bother. You male feminist, you Uncle Ruckus. You left-wing men argue with their wives exactly the same as right-wing men. The exact same. You have the exact same issues, and you have the exact same attitude.
But he's arguing that somehow now, in a relationship, if you use logic, you can't do that with voters. So yeah, I mean, on some level, you have to draw on their feelings, but that's not inevitable. Like, we should probably focus on the facts, not just be like, oh, hate, fear, suspicion of the other. Like, that's not inevitable. That's not how we have to do politics. It's very powerful and it's very divisive, but what the hell is he talking about?
You're saying she never goes, oh, you're right. That data does make me less angry.
No, I've never heard a woman say
Yeah,
that.
but that's not analogous to politics, I don't think. Like, if you have, it's just, I think it says a lot about his relationship and how he sees people, how he communicates.
Oh, yeah?
Because if you feel angry, you should say, I feel upset that you've done this. And if you say that 9 times out of 10 out of someone in a sincere way, they'll go, oh, sorry about that.
Well, then you're either not married or you're lying.
Sorry, I did that. I didn't know. And it shouldn't lead to an argument. But these guys don't know what emotional intelligence is. They wouldn't know.
Emotional intelligence doesn't exist. It's just made up. It's just a made up term to try and pat women on the back. To say that there's something about them that's superior to us. This guy has a wife, he argues just like these guys. He gets just as emotional, and he can't simply come up and say, oh, I understand you, or this pisses me off. And he knows it. This Uncle Ruckus knows it. Anyway, that's as far as you need to go. This guy, Anthony Jones, he's a typical left-wing female bootlicking male. He's a typical Uncle Ruckus. So he'll call out the right-wingers for what they're guilty of. But then when someone brings up, these obvious hate mongers that are in his midst, he'll get all emotional. And he won't use logic. He won't look at the facts. So the facts don't support his view, his desperate view of reality. So when it comes to feminism, these left-wingers are no better than the right-wingers. And that's why the men's rights movement has nowhere to go. The left wing is hostile to us. The right wing is hostile to us. And there are no centrists. Anyway, I've called this Uncle Ruckus out. That's good enough for me.